Canada is a great place to live. We have low crime rate, great healthcare system, and so much snow. So much snow. Yet sadly we lack a solid miniature painting scene. Or so I thought. This year, I attended Sword and Brush 2023. And it was fantastic. I'm just going to start by saying that most of this video is going to feature footage I took at Sword and Brush 2023. There were a ton of talented artists that attended, and I just want to make sure that their work is shared with others. If you've done any work recently, I highly suggest sharing it with other artists you know or any online communities, because we should always be looking for positive or constructive feedback in order to lift each other up and become better collectively. Anyways, I'll shut up. Here's the video. Sword and Brush 2023 is actually the first painting competition I've attended. In fact, I haven't been to a hobby expo type thing in a very long time. The last time I did something like this was probably Games Day Canada, the first and last of its kind, back in 2001-ish. Yet Games Day was very much focused on Warhammer, and back then at least, it was much more about the gaming side of the hobby and less so about the painting side. Yet back then, it didn't really matter as I was new to the hobby, and for me, it was all just about exploring all the interesting miniatures I had yet to be exposed to, my tiny child brain just in wonder of it all, amazed by the stories being told across these fantastical battlefields. I actually feel like most people are introduced to this hobby via the gaming side of things, usually through some big brand like Warhammer, which is everywhere these days. There's Warhammer video games, board games, you can get Warhammer themed candles. There's an entire streaming service now just for Warhammer, if that's what you're into. The point of all this though, at least from what I've seen, is that most of us get into the painting hobby via the gaming hobby. Now, because of this front-facing aspect of the hobby, at least for myself, I found it quite difficult to find other painting-focused hobbyists, let alone entire events dedicated to this core pillar of the hobby, especially in Canada. So as I said earlier, Canada is a great place to live for many reasons. However, for painting-focused hobbyists, there's not really any large-scale events for us. Sure, there are some for gaming, but nothing for painting. I've always wanted to attend more events like Games Day Canada, but sadly there hasn't been one for a very long time, and we do not have an equivalent to Adepticon, Warhammer Fest, or LVO, for example. We have plenty of smaller events dotting the landscape, but no real large conventions. And of course, most friendly local stores are focused on the gaming side of things because gaming sells miniatures. That's just the way it is, that's business. Now, because of this, I found it very difficult to find other painting-focused hobbyists, especially in my area. And then by chance, I found that opportunity. Sometime in November last year, I came across a post from a page called Sword and Brush, thanking everyone for attending their 2022 event. Upon further inspection, I actually learned that this is Canada's largest miniature and figure painting expo. How it escaped me for so long, I have no idea. But it seemed like an amazing opportunity to meet other hobbyists. So I kept my ears open, and once the date for the 2023 event was announced, I began working on my dwarf mercenary bust by Spira Mirabilis. I've been collecting these busts for some time now, but I haven't actually painted one. I've been afraid of ruining it, which is just silly. So this seemed like the perfect opportunity to face that little bit of fear and get one of these bad boys painted up. Now, if you check out the Sword and Brush website, which I'll link down in the description, there's lots of information on the event to be found there, including a gallery of past entries from various artists. There's really some amazing work on the site, a lot of pieces that I don't think I could ever compete against. However, I've always wanted to enter a painting competition, if not just for the experience of it all. But more than anything, I wanted to attend Sword and Brush just to socialize with other hobbyists, other painters, sculptors, creators. I've been painting for around 25 years or so now, but it's only over the last few years, starting during COVID lockdowns, that I really started focusing on becoming a better painter. During that time, I learned how satisfying it is to create something that wasn't there before, knowing that without your input, it would never actually even exist. But that was also a time of isolation, trying to grow as a painter on my own without any input from other hobbyists, let alone opportunities to meet other hobbyists. Sword and Brush seemed like my chance. I arrived at 9:30 a.m. a half hour before the event start time, and the hall was already filling up. The tables were slowly being covered in beautiful pieces of art, and vendors lined the outer walls, showing off all kinds of cool products targeted at the hobby. There was also a long table set up for a bring and buy event, essentially a hobby garage sale where you can drop off products that you are no longer in need of, sell them to others at the event, and inevitably end up spending your earnings on even more product. A vicious cycle. There are some amazing deals to be had, and it's always fun to rummage through piles of hobby paraphernalia, never knowing what you might find. The back of the hall was set up with 2 long rows of tables that would be used for speed painting events throughout the day. There was 3 events to be held, one each for sci-fi, fantasy, and historical. Despite it being a smaller hall, when I left at the end of the day, I still felt like I hadn't seen everything. It was hard to not find yourself distracted by the pieces, spending a good chunk of time looking at a single figure and talking to the artist about their work, or just socializing with literally anyone you came across. For a community that spends most of their time in dark rooms painting tiny men, everyone sure wanted to be social. And socialize I did. I spent most of my time at Sword & Brush just talking to other hobbyists as well as to the vendors discussing the beautiful handmade products. I'd met up with a few online painting friends for the event, and we spent a good amount of time socializing as well. Talking about the work we submitted, our favorite painters, how we got into the hobby, and all kinds of other things. Most of us also took part in the speed painting competitions. I took part in the fantasy and sci-fi ones, but I skipped the historical because it's just not really in my wheelhouse. For the fantasy event, we were all provided 3D printed orcs, and for the sci-fi event, we were all provided the almighty Space Marine. I don't normally like painting Space Marines that much, but I actually had a mountain of fun just trying to produce something decent within the 1 hour time limit. A couple contestants were even ballsy enough to attempt a yellow Imperial Fist scheme and a red Blood Angels scheme within a 1 hour time slot. Absolute madmen. Eventually my friends and I realized that we were starving. We were having so much fun that we had forgotten to eat, so we stepped out for a bite. By the time we got back, we had less than an hour before the awards and closing ceremony. I spent that time running around checking out any pieces I had yet to see, taking pictures for later inspiration, and of course for this video. The awards ceremony was fantastic. It was great to see so many people get recognized for their amazing works of art. The audience nodding in agreement that the work was worthy of an award. Awards were given to folks of all ages as well, ranging from veteran painters in their silver years, down to a pair of young girls who I believe were nominated in their work for one of the speed painting competitions, and for that were given a massive box of army painter paint to get them started in the hobby. It was great to see such positivity as awards were handed out. There was no sense of jealousy, failure, or sadness, just artists cheering on each other and complimenting one another on their efforts. And I walked out of there honestly feeling pretty happy myself. I managed to win the sci-fi painting competition, for which I painted an ultramarine, which netted me a new wet palette, and then I left the ultramarine behind because I was so excited about everything. I also pulled in a bronze medal in the wargaming unit category for my Crystal Zombies entry, but more than anything, I'm proud of my dwarf mercenary, for which I was given a silver medal in the sci-fi fantasy single model category. As someone who can be fairly negative about their own work, it was truly encouraging to receive this kind of feedback. I often show my work to family and friends and receive positive comments, but rarely do I hear from others in the hobby space. People who know about the traps to avoid and the mountains to climb. I truly left this event feeling re-energized and encouraged to continue on this long and sometimes lonely journey of painting wee men into the night. And it was strange that I didn't want to leave at the end of the day, because I'm normally someone who runs out of a social battery quite quickly. But it was such an inviting environment where I could talk about paint endlessly, and people were actually interested instead of feigning interest, which I absolutely appreciate. Thank you so much for feigning interest in my geeky stuff. Now, if you're someone that has never attended an event like this before, I wholeheartedly encourage you to give it a shot. And I doubly encourage you to compete if you can, especially if it's an open format competition like this one. It was such an amazing day, and I absolutely plan on attending other events like this, starting with probably Adepticon next year. There's no way I'm winning Golden Demon, but I bet it's going to be an amazing time. I'm going to let this video roll out with the rest of the photos I've taken. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you continue to watch. And until next time, paint today for a better tomorrow. Peace out. Just a quick note, I wanted to add here that you can check the description below. I'm going to upload all of the pictures I've taken to OneDrive, so you can jump up there and just see all of the cool pieces that people brought to this event. Also, please do not leave any negative comments about people's pieces. We are all in this hobby to have fun and grow as painters. So let's lift each other up and keep the ball rolling. All right, have a good one, folks. Difficult to find other hobbyists that are more so painting on focused. Painting on focused. Painting on focused. Painting on focused.